Manx Radio Sport.
Good evening, welcome to your latest edition of Friday Sport Preview here on Manx Radio. Rob Pritchard here, along with the Manx Radio Sports team, to bring you the sporting action coming up this weekend on Ireland. Coming up on tonight's programme: 8 teams, 2 competitions, a place in one of 2 cup finals up for grabs. The semi-finals of the Ecap FA Cup and GH Corlett Woods Cup are among the standout ties in Manx football this weekend. With 5 games of the season remaining, FC Isle of Man will be hoping to bring to an end their longest winless run of the season so far on Saturday. Rugby action on Ireland this Saturday includes Douglas, Vagabonds away from home, a combined Manx Cup and Manx Shield tie, and 3 league titles could be won this weekend in Manx hockey. That is all to come this evening. Very good evening, welcome to Friday Sport Preview, your latest edition on Manx Radio. Well, after a lovely couple of days here on the island, the weather seems to be closing in ahead of the weekend, and that means there could be headaches for the man sat across from me right now as we're going to dive into what's coming up in football this weekend. So, cup games taking the spotlight once again. There are 8 teams remaining across 2 competitions, all vying for a place in a potential final in the coming weeks. It is the semi-finals of the Ecap FA Cup and GH Corlett Woods Cup this weekend. Taking us through those and the league fixtures this weekend is our football correspondent Tony Mepham. Tony, very good evening.
Good evening, Rob. We always like to look at the weather. Weather's been good. I know there's maybe a few little showers coming in tomorrow, but I don't think it'll matter. Pitches are drying up nicely in good condition, and what wonderful sort of situation we're in. Daylight right the way through as well, quite late now, so I think quite a few clubs will be going back to training midweek on grass as well, which is great news for them.
Fingers crossed we get a full programme this weekend. Let's take a look at what's happening on Saturday to start with. We'll start with those semi-finals of the 2 competitions. Start with the Ecap FA Cup. 2 games kicking off at 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. The first of those, Tony, you'll be our eyes and ears at this game tomorrow over at Gary Moore. That's going to see Union Mills. Some big results this season, but maybe some ones that they will look back a little disappointed on in the league, especially this season, up against Ayr United, last year's finalists in this competition. Yeah,
it's always tough, and let's have a look at Union Mills first. And you're right in what you're saying, is that they've had some big results along the way, but when you look at that one recently against Russian, where they lost 4-1, you just say to yourself, things aren't quite right now. If the news information I've been given about the team is correct, then it might just have a little bit more cutting edge on it, taking nothing away from Dominic McCarry-Brennan. But if Luke Booth plays tomorrow, then what a big plus that is for Union Mills. So I'm sure Ryan Kelly's working out how to get the best out of his team. Defensively, I would say that there'll be the usual suspects in there. Will Miller will be there. You've also got Owen Quayle, and then you've got Nathan Yates, nice and strong. I believe Mason Prince will be back in with the number 1 jersey, but as I say, just a little rumour mill here. And then when you look at the former Jack Murray, you've got Tyler Hughes as well. You know, they've got a real good, strong band of players, and Ryan Kelly knows that. But Ayr United, I think, we've had conversations a few weeks ago where everything sort of seemed to be going wrong for them, and conceding a few goals, losing games. But I think Nick Hurt, coming back into the squad, has been able to organise the team a lot better. They've looked, a little bit more clinical going forward. You've got Sean Kelly in there. Johnny Shields will play. Jamie Callister, I'm not too sure because he had a nose operation a couple of weeks ago. But certainly people like Chris Duggan, they can get amongst the goals then. It could be a very difficult afternoon for Union Mills. I'm sure Union Mills have looked at the long throw that'll be coming in, but I think Ayr United experience will come through.
Well, just one name you mentioned there, Luke Booth of Union Mills, whether he will be included or not. Well, perhaps a possible indication here he's not included in the FC Isle of Man squad in the NWCFL Premier Division tomorrow. We'll come on to FC Isle of Man later in the programme. The other Ecap FA Cup semi-final pits the defending champions Russian United, who have been in fantastic form in all competitions in recent weeks after a tough start to the season. They're going to be hosting a Foxdale side, Tony, that in the league at least still have a lot of games to catch up on and could still climb the table.
I think they've got 7 still to play, so league games. So when you look at that, that's 7 weeks. That's nearly 2 months, but there'll be night games coming in. But credit to them. They're still chipping away, staying in touch, and they're the ones I feel that if anything could happen to Peel losing that league, it would be Foxdale winning all the games. But this is a cup game, and I've forgotten the last time that they were playing a major final like this, FA Cup or Hospital Cup. I think it's been many, many years. Well, it has been. But Russian United, Andrew Moody's got them playing really well. been really impressed. I think the current form of Stephen Riding has been fantastic. He had a brilliant game last week. A lot of good reports about him. But just right the way through the whole team, they seem to have all come together, bonded well, and have looked, fantastic. I watched them a couple of weeks ago against Ramsey. So I think Rushen will win it. I think they'll get through to the final, but certainly Foxtel will be looking to sort of stop that with the players that they've got to score the goals up front.
So those are your Ecap FA Cup semi-finals, 2 p.m. kick-off tomorrow. Uni Mills versus A United at Gary Moore, and then at Croyt Lowy, Rushen United versus Foxdale. The semi-finals of the GH Corlett Woods Cup tomorrow as well, also at the same time at 2 o'clock. And first of those, Tony, this was an absolute thriller in the league between these two sides earlier in the season. I think if we see anything like that, the neutral could be in for an absolute treat in this one. Douglas High School Old Boys battling away with Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys at the moment for that final promotion spot in Division 2, up against a Braddon side that secured mathematically their immediate return to the Canada Life Men's Premier League last weekend. So we've got top of Division 2 up against one of the contenders. This could be a cracker.
It could be, and as you rightly say, I watched the game against Braddon, and it was just discipline really that cost Old Boys in the end. But I think they'll be wiser to that now, because certainly this being a cup semi-final, you don't want to lose the services of players, and you don't want to also pick up bookings early on. So they've got to be pretty disciplined on it. Watched Braddon last week. A bit of a, I wouldn't say stroll in the park, but a bit of a cruise for them. And, just with that Liam Kane up front scoring goals, and he's so sort of good in that sort of final third, then it's going to be very, very difficult, I think, for Old Boys to try and close this down. Yes, they've got an ideal person in that, in Martin King, but, just when you look right the way through the team, it's full of a lot of good young players, Rob, and it's just a question of if they can get it together on the day, then they could sort of beat Braddon. But I think it's a big ask, and certainly with people like Jacob Stones in that squad, Chris Coxon's going to play as well, then they've got good experience in there and goals, but I just think Braddon will be too strong.
And in the other GH Corlett Woods Cup semi-finals, we mentioned Douglas High School Old Boys and Braddon there meeting this weekend. Well, they are two of the top three of Division 2 in the league at the moment. The top three in Division 2 all playing in the semi-finals this weekend. Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys is the other of those in second at the moment, ahead of Old Boys in the league. They're going to have an away trip to Douglas Royal. Yeah,
and Douglas Royal, I think, is fitting. It's a good pitch, so it'll make for a good game of football. Ramsey Youth Centre's pitch a little bit tighter, but still a good playing surface. But when you look at Douglas Royal 7th in the league, Ramsey Youth Centre 2nd, then that gives you sort of an idea of where this could go. Ramsey Youth Centre, I've watched them twice this year. Watched them in the cup game against Malou, and they did really well. And that's what they've got to do, is just show that same performance in there. There's good players in that team. Douglas Royal as well have sort of got a nice gel going together. The new players that joined them early on have now cemented their places in there. They can score goals. Jordan Cowan, obviously, I know him from his Corinthians days, really good player. And if he can be on his game as well, then he could really sort of take the charge, I think, for Douglas Royal against Ramsey Youth Centre. I wouldn't be surprised, Rob, if this doesn't go to extra time. I think it's going to be that tight. But Ramsey Youth Centre, they know what they want. They want to play in the final on Good Friday, and that's a carrot for all the teams in the FA Cup and the Woods Cup. Two major finals. They all want to be there. You're looking at me to say, give me a winner. I'm going to go for Ramsey Youth Centre, I think, just to win it.
Very well. So just a reminder there, GH Corlett Woods Cup semi-finals, 2 o'clock kickoffs tomorrow. Over at Blackberry Lane, Douglas High School Old Boys hosting current Division 2 leaders Braddon, and then at Ballafletcher, Douglas Royal up against high-flying Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys. Well, outside of those cup semi-finals, there is still plenty going on across the respective league games as well, across the divisions on Saturday and Sunday. On Saturday, we've got 3 games in the Canada Life Men's Premier League kicking off at 2:30pm. We'll start up north, and it sees a Ramsey side coming up against St George's, second from bottom at the moment, Tony. 4 points behind Onken just above them, but having played a game less, St George's really needing points at the moment.
You certainly do. When you look at your final 2 games, they've got Ramsey tomorrow and then Ayr United. It's a big ask, isn't it? And Johnny Myers, you have to give him massive credit over the last 2 to 3 years, because it really has been a dogfight for him, hasn't it? To try and A, get a team out, B, to stop the team from being relegated. And it's a real struggle for them. But I'm pretty certain that people like Chris Bash, Sean Quay will be available, so that'll help things. I don't know where they are with Kieran McNulty, because he didn't play sort of last week, but Carl Henson's in there. And then when you look at Ashley Higginbottom, it all sort of helps things. And I think, St George's, may be able to live with it for the first half, but the second half, Ramsey have got some real fit players in there. Dylan Pickles is, I'm sure, will be in the squad. And again, when you look at right the way through their team, they're littered with quality. Alfie Scott's one that I've always liked, playing on that left-hand side if he plays there. And I think, for Ramsey, they'd love to be in this final. And, they'd love to be taking St George's away from the, I wouldn't say out of badness. St George's obviously have been the dominant team over the last few years, and now suddenly they're struggling. Ramsey, do they want to play a part in putting them down? I would say some of the players would say yes. So they've got to battle with that as well, because Ramsey just want to progress and see how high they can get in that league.
So Ramsey versus St George's at the Ballakilley Stadium tomorrow. Well, looking towards the top of the table, and Corinthians second in the standings, 43 points after 22 games. They're 4 points behind leaders Peel, who have a game in hand as well on the Douglas Base side. Corinthians at home at Ballafletcher this weekend up against Laxey. Yeah,
and I think when you still look at that league table, I have to admit, Rob, that Corinthians being in second place, I think is unbelievable. When you look at the player changes that they've had this season, the new players that have come in from their under-18s have been absolutely brilliant. Connor Clark up front, when you look at Nathan Little, two Bevan Colley as a third one, and just right the way through, Declan Blake is on the edge of maybe getting included in the Ireland squad because of his performances. And then with the one or two other players that are around there, Joe Middleton, he probably won't play tomorrow. But Jaume Alquez as well has found himself in the FC Isle of Man squad on merit. Credit to him. Laxey, Johnny Palmer will be disappointed with the way things have gone for them of late. The numbers have been shy at training, which will disappoint Johnny, but there's still a lot of good players coming through, and it's great to see these players 16, 17 years of age given the opportunity to play in a top side in the Premier League. I'm going to go for Corinthians to take the win.
And the third game in Canada Life Men's Premier League could have big implications at both the top and bottom of the table this weekend. So the current league leaders, Peel, 4 points clear at the top. Well, they could all but mathematically secure the Canada Life Men's Premier League title this weekend if they were to beat an Onken side. And Onken here, Tony, just by doing some quick maths here. So Onken in 11th after 23 games on 22 points. St George's, who we've mentioned, in 12th on 18 points after 22 games. If Onken were to beat the odds and win tomorrow, that could relegate St George's. Yeah,
it would do. And, Onken will be looking to do that as well because, against Peel, Onken know that they've got, good sort of players in there. Max Shirley was absolutely tremendous last week by all accounts. And I watched him recently in a game up at, Onken Park against St John's, and he was a handful to deal with them. So they've got to try and contain him. But Peel, one or two sort of players who've come into the squad made them a lot stronger. Rhys Oates has been able to find some more form after coming back from that injury. And I just think Peel, with the carrot being dangled in front of them now to basically get in one hand on the trophy, is enough for them to strive for victory. And in front of a large, I would think, home crowd, I think it will go Peel's way. But take heed from Onken's result last week. That was a massive result for Onken and a big, big shock, I think, in Manx football. I haven't seen something like that, a real sort of important result that they needed, and they just didn't win it by an odd goal. They won it in style. So Onken will make it difficult, but I think Peel will win.
So a reminder of you three ties in Canada Life Men's Premier League this weekend, all kicking off at 2:30pm. Ramsey versus St George's, Corinthians versus Laxey, and Peel versus Onken. Just the two games in Ardern and Drungan Limited Division 2 on Saturday. We have a Southern derby, Tony, Colby versus Maloo, and also Governors Athletic will be up against Castletown.
Yeah, credit to Maloo, back on track. They're getting a team out now, which, players back from holiday, I think it was, and some from injury, and it's helped things out. Watched Colby last week. They worked hard. I think Steve Collister might miss this game. He looked as if he picked up an injury. But when you look at people like Carl Hickey, didn't have a good game last week. He found it tough to sort of get the ball to him. But people like Ollie Edge in there, and just right the way through the team, they battled hard, but it was against a tough Braddon side. But against Maloo, I think they will have a better day in the office, and I'm going to go for Colby to win.
Governors Athletic and Castletown not quite at the pace of some of the top 3 or 4 sides at the moment. At a Governors side, 4 games from their 17 wins so far.
Yeah, and I think certainly with Governors, it's been another season of sort of building because they've got some good players in there. I've watched them, the big guys. So physically now they've got the strength, and it's just just like what happens on the field develop. Castletown, I think Nathan Cardy's gone away now, so they'll miss him, and one or two other players haven't been available, so I think it could be tough for Gary Sansby's team. Governors Athletic again are a team that can win points off some of the big teams, and Castletown's one of them. I'm going to go for a draw on this.
Very well. Let's take a look at the combination leagues very quickly, Tony. We'll start with Canada Live Combination 1. 4 games there on Saturday, one of them being the early kick-off.
Yeah, it is, and the early kick-off is St Mary's against Corinthians. No, St Mary's have got people like Jamie Skillen and the likes in there, but I think Corinthians, again, a second batch of young players have come in and developed really well, so I'm going to go for Corinthians to win that. St John's against Ramsey. Today someone was telling me at work that St John's are going to win it. Well, I'm not so sure, because I'm looking at that league table, and that says to me that Ramsey are really in the thick of the race here to win this championship, so I'll go with Ramsey. Onken against Union Mills. Onken know they've just got to keep winning to stay in touch, so I'll go with Onken. And Foxtel against Moran. I think honours even on this one. I'm going to go for a draw.
And 4 games also in Ardern and Drug Unlimited Combination 2 on Saturday.
Yeah, Jim's against Old Boys. I'm going to go for Old Boys to win there. Braddon against Ramsey Youth Centre and Old Boys. Braddon to win. Douglas and District against Colby. This one, Rob, is at Colby. The reason B is that the Ardern and Drug and Combination 2 title trophy will be presented by Scott Christian to Colby after the game, so anyone who's thinking of heading down there, the presentation will probably be about 4:15, so if you want to get down at half time and watch the boys get the medals in that one. And Pulrose against Douglas Athletic, I'm going to go with Pulley.
Those are your fixtures on Saturday. Let's take a look ahead to the 3 games that are penned in for Sunday. 2 in the Canada Life Women's League, both kicking off at 2 p.m. on Sunday. Corinthians, well, congratulations to them winning the Women's FA Cup for an 8th time last weekend, beating Malou by 5-2 at the Bowl. They're back in action up against Onken. It's Onken down as the home team, but this is being played at Corinthians, Tony. Yeah,
it is. It's just the stadium's booked, so it couldn't be used. So Onken are more than happy to play at Corinthians. And as you've just said, well done to Corinthians last week, but they didn't have it all their own way, did they, Rob? Because they were 2-0 up, and I thought, right, okay. And then, Malou, start the second half were absolutely fantastic. And I think it's Nathan Cardy's sister, actually, that bagged 2. The second one, unbelievable goal. So well done to her, and well done to Malou. But I think Corinthians will win that. And Malou against Douglas Royal. Malou have showed to me last week they can play. There's some really good players in there. Douglas Royal, struggled a couple of times not to get a team out, but hopefully they're okay on Sunday, and I'll go with Malou to take the win.
And just again, to go on to that second game, Malou versus Douglas Royal, you mentioned there, Tony, that Corinthians didn't have it all their own way, even though they probably went in as big favourites against that Malou side. But seeing some of the responses on social media from Malou going into this week after this weekend is just how much credit they were giving to the heart and the grit inside that team and those behind it as well. That, for the rest of the campaign, will that give Malou encouragement going into the rest of the season?
Definitely. The fixtures are running out, and I would say it'll put them in good stead for next season, because Corinthians had a lot of island players there, and it was very, very difficult to break them down. And it just shows you how hard Malou have worked on it, because the fitness levels were tremendous. And as I say, I think it's Rosabelle Cardy who got the 2 goals. Certainly just being able to get the ball up to her up front, you are always in with a chance, because she's quick, and the rest of the players around just gel together, work so hard, and credit to them. When you think that team has been built in about 3 years, and to be getting them in that place where they are and into a final, and they've already won the 7-a-side B and A, then I think Corinthians appeal, and the others need to look out.
Indeed. Well, we heard, of course, from Tara Mitchell at Malou last week, and who mentioned last Friday Sport Preview, in fact, where she mentioned that a lot of these players, some of them hadn't even played football before, and that's been part of the growing process. The other game on Sunday is the first round of the Masters FA Cup, and that sees Laxey take on Corinthians at the Bowl. Yeah,
just one game, because we've got the 9 teams, and then we can get the Masters fixtures set up for the Cup. We'll do the draw on Sunday night. The office will do that one, but Laxey against Corinthians. Laxey have sort of lost 1 or 2 players. Corinthians have got 1 or 2 new players signed for them earlier on, so this will be a right battle. It's a cup game, and I'm going to go for Corinthians just to nick it.
Tony, thank you very much just for the moment.
Manx Radio Sport.
Moving on, and having hinted last weekend that his players may be feeling the effects of a 46-game season, FC Isle of Man's manager has the task of trying to lift his players for another test in the NWCFL Premier Division tomorrow night. It's been a frustrating run of home ties in the league for the Ravens, who are without a victory in their last 6 and haven't managed maximum points at the bowl against any of the division's bottom 4 teams. Well, another relegation-threatened side visits on Saturday in the form of South Liverpool, who are looking to maintain or extend an 8-point buffer from the relegation zone. Well, once again, FC Isle of Man boss Paul Jones spoke to us at Manx Radio ahead of this latest challenge. No wins in 6 at the moment, so from the last few weeks, particularly when you faced teams towards the bottom regions of the table at the moment, what's been the biggest challenge for you and your players over the last few weeks, do you think?
I think I'm right in saying 4 draws in that 6 though as well, isn't there? So we're not losing games, but we're also, I think we're not winning games that we think that we should be winning. So part of it is taking our chances, but the biggest thing, and we spoke about it during the weekend, that we've dropped off on is our intensity out of possession, and we've gone back to like we were at the start of the season, a bit too easy to score against, and that's something we as a group don't accept in terms of being close to our standards. So we really shouldn't be conceding more than 1 goal a game every game. When we were winning lots, we weren't conceding more than 1 goal a game, and the last few weeks we've conceded more than 1 goal, which makes it very difficult to win games of football at this level. So we need to take our chances, be more ruthless, but the biggest thing really, we have to stop conceding sloppy goals.
One comment you made after the double header, and it wasn't just in relation to the physical toll that a double-header weekend has on the players, but you felt that maybe the playing group was maybe just starting to feel the effects a little bit of a long season as well. So given the fact that you've still got a few weeks to go, how do you go about lifting them to make sure they keep playing for their pride, whatever happens in the last few games?
I don't think it's an issue in terms of them stopping playing. You saw at the weekend we were behind in both games. Every time they scored, we came back and we got points from losing positions, and this season we've got more points from losing positions than we have for a long time. So actually the last 2 seasons that I've been in charge. So the players are playing to the last minute. They care. They're working really hard. So I don't think there's any worry from that point of view. It's just maintaining that kind of standard out of possession, especially to be difficult to score against. And it's sometimes the lower energy levels are more noticeable if you're not winning games. So getting a couple of wins under our belt will really kind of lift everybody again, and that'll help us, go through to the end of the season and have a good break before next season. But, they're in a good place. A win always helps, and we probably should have had more than a few in the last kind of 7-8 weeks. And when you're not winning, then confidence and energy levels, you start to notice things a little bit more than you would do normally. And that's just natural no matter when you are or where you are in a season.
Look at your opponents, South Liverpool, one of those teams that has been, for large parts of the season, been battling towards the bottom of the table. They've had an upturn in results in the last couple of months, which has just lifted them into a better position as it stands. Currently, against the bottom 4, you haven't got any wins at home this season. What makes it so difficult against these teams that are battling for survival?
One, they're battling for survival. They've not stopped, and then they don't stop all game. I think, like Man U, like the Old Trafford used to be a place that people would fear going and know that they were going to really struggle to get a result, but now it's a place where teams go and feel like they can get a result. And at the moment, because of the results we've had this season, teams are coming to the Isle of Man thinking we've got a chance, and we have to get to a place where teams come thinking we'll be lucky to get a draw coming to the Isle of Man. Coming to the Isle of Man is a big weekend for most teams still. It's like going to play Bury. They raise their game, the pitch, the environment, the atmosphere is like a really good one to play in. So there's lots of things there that work in the favour of the opposition sometimes, and maybe sometimes we don't quite match that. But there's also the narrative of, as you've alluded to, that we don't do very well against teams at the bottom of the table, and people keep saying that over and over again, and they say it because it's true, but we also need to flip that and take ownership over that and take control over that and internally stop referencing that, because that doesn't do us any favours. I think the players recognise that there's an expectation from their family, friends, work colleagues, supporters that we should be winning those games, and that maybe puts an extra level of pressure on them as well, which maybe we're not handling as well as we could do. So we're actively doing our best to make sure that as many of those pressures are not felt as possible.
FC Isle of Man manager Paul Jones there, ahead of his side's NWCFL Premier Division tie at home against South Liverpool tomorrow night at the Bowl in Douglas at 6 p.m. If you're not heading down to the Bowl yourself, we at Manx Radio have got you covered. Full live match commentary of FC Isle of Man versus South Liverpool from 6 p.m. tomorrow, Saturday, on Manx Radio AM 1368 and DAB, where we can bring you the squad news for FC Isle of Man for that game. Tomorrow it is as follows. This is the FC Isle of Man squad. In alphabetical order, it is Sam Baines, Ryan Burns, Jacob Crook, Danny Gerrard, Charlie Higgins, Harley Jackson, Adam Killier, Alex Maitland, Ronan McDonnell, Jack McVeigh, Dean Pinnington, Callum Sherry, Dan Simpson, Carl Watson, Steve Whitley and Ben Wasser. Well, Tony, very quickly, we'll just bring you back in on this because you'll be rejoining us in the commentary booth tomorrow night as well. It was a tough doubleheader for FC Isle of Man last weekend, and Paul Jones, one of the comments he made was, and it wasn't just about the physical toll of FC Isle of Man with the doubleheader weekend, but in the season, he said that the players may be tired. It's been a long campaign. How do you go about lifting a set of players when you're in mid-table at the moment and there's not too much to fight for?
Yeah, they're good enough players, Rob, and they know what they've got to do. They're playing at home as well, which they want to prove to the Manx public that they're a really good team, and they are a good team. Just unfortunately, towards the end, it's all sort of gone a little bit pear-shaped for them because one or two players have sort of lost a little bit of form and conceding sort of silly goals and stuff like that. But you know, it's still, you know, great to watch, and I'm pretty certain tomorrow night. I missed both games last week because of a function on, but certainly looking forward to tomorrow's game. And I'm sure the players have listened to Paul, listened to Gaz Lloyd, and said, you know, listen, let's get these things right. Let's get it right on the pitch. And that sounds a really strong squad, so hopefully it will go their way.
Indeed. Well, Tony, thank you very much, and we'll be catching up with you tomorrow on Saturday Live as well with coverage from the Ecap FA Cup, and he'll be joining me in the commentary booth for FC Isle of Man versus South Liverpool tomorrow. That's all for the footballing side of things. On another busy schedule in Manx football this weekend, we're going to be turning our attention to Rugby next. Douglas, Vagabonds and a Manx Cup and Manx Shield doubleheader this weekend. We'll be looking at that in just a few moments.
Manx Radio Sport.
Welcome back to Friday Sport Preview on Manx Radio, turning our attention to rugby and selection of both on and off island action taking place this weekend. Douglas, they'll be back at Regional 2 North West in their penultimate game of the campaign, also facing their second to last game of the current season. Vagabonds, they're on their travels in Counties 3, ADM, Lancashire, Cheshire, and locally we will have a combined Manx Cup and Manx Shield showdown down south. To go through everything as usual with us is our rugby correspondent Dave Christian. Dave, we're going to turn our attention to Douglas first, and coming up against the Winnington Park side. They won the reverse fixture early in the season. How do you rate the Island's side's chances in this one?
Oh, better than average, I would think, Rob. Much better than average. It was a big win away from home for Douglas back in January, off the top of my head. I think 40 points to 10. That's quite a big margin for away from home. Douglas home advantage. I think pretty much everybody who has had a knock is back and fit again. Only real missing link, which is probably an appropriate way to describe him as well, is prop forward Simon Hodgenott. He's still in training for the London Marathon, but we're going to see him back, I would think, very, very shortly. So Douglas going well. They're after that sixth place, their highest ever finish at this level. Winnington Park just above the drop zone. They look to have the upper hand of the three teams at the bottom. They're third from bottom, and I think it's going to be the bottom two that'll go down from Regional 2 Northwest. So Winnington Park, I think any points for them will be a little bit of a bonus, and it will just keep them away from the trapdoor. But I don't see, on the form that they've been displaying so far this season, I don't see them turning over Douglas at Portishead. They'll have the home crowd there, and I know the players are very serious about getting a nice high league finish. And the stats are showing that Douglas aren't that far away at the top of this table from actually being competitive for the promotion places. The rating point I always use is the number of losing bonus points. That tells you that Douglas have finished within 7 points of their opposition, and that means that if there's 2 or 3 losing bonus points in there, that's potentially 2 or 3 defeats that could be changed into wins, and it won't take much to do that. And Douglas not too far away. Phil Kringle, the coach, won't have that much hard work to do maybe next season. See, 2 losing bonus points showing on the table. That indicates that they're potentially maybe 10 points better than they're currently showing. That's going to put them close to the top 5. They look to be picking up maybe a top 6 finish this season. And those extra points will make all the difference. The big boys at the top, it looks to be a 3-way fight between Bowden, Furwood, Waterloo and Sandbach. And sadly for Douglas, they have to go to Furwood Waterloo for their very last game of the season. I think that's the 5th of April off the top of my head. That's going to be a big ask for Douglas because Furwood Waterloo will have all guns blazing for that. And similarly will be Bowden and Sandbach. They're all in the frame for potentially a league title or a promotion place. So when it's getting to that stage of the season, the sharp end, everybody's going to be trying their hardest. Douglas team, and you'll no doubt have that, Rob, and we'll probably go through it very shortly, but there's no big surprises on there. The only one that catches the eye for me is Craig and Kyle Martin. The Martin twins. The reassuring thing for me is that I'm not covering that game for Saturday Live. I'm not going to get their names wrong, and I won't have Mum Tracy shouting at me afterwards because I called Kyle Craig and Craig Kyle. But the Martin twins, Craig's not been in the game for a little while. He's been dabbling about with Castletown and Western Vikings. He showed great form when he does play, and testimony to him and Kyle, they're going to be wearing the 14 and 15 jerseys tomorrow. Kyle at fullback, Craig on the wing. But it's a good, strong Douglas team. They should take maximum points in front of the home crowd. And the kick-off there at Portishead is 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Well, let's take a look then, just very quickly, at that Douglas starting 15. So numbers 1 to 15 in order are as follows. It is Ralph Clark, Gerhard Verzagi, Owen Carvin, Harry Cartwright, the captain Blake Snell, Blake Everson, Mark Oldfield, Liam Kirkpatrick, Nathan Robson, Josh Duncan, Connor Stevens, James Ross, Harry Hewson, Craig Martin and Carl Martin. There'll be 3 substitutes for Phil Kringle's side. They are Richard Bell, Connor Garland and Callum Dentith. Now, Dave, as you've been pointing out throughout the season, there have been some new additions to this Douglas squad throughout the season. A couple of those you have been impressed by, even with 2 games to go before we can do a proper summary of the campaign, shall we say. Who are some of the new faces in this Douglas team that you've been impressed by throughout the season so far?
Well, the first guy is obvious. It's Nathan Robson at scrum half. Nathan was down at Ramsey and he jumped ship at the end of December. I think his last game for Ramsey was an away game at Southern Nomads. He then moved over to Douglas. Since he's gone, he's been starting at either 9 or 10. I don't think he started on the bench at all. He's been wearing a 9 or 10 jersey. He's kicking his goals. He's picked up a Man of the Match award at a game at Portishead. He's an all-rounder. He's a nice guy, but he's an all-rounder as a great player, a scrum half. He's been a massive success for them. And the other guy that I was being impressed with is Blake Everson. He's starting in the back row. He's another small man on the pitch, but he does a huge job. And Blake Everson, as destructive at the breakdown, gets down over the top, gets himself over the ball, makes it difficult for the opposition to get clean ball coming out of their rucks and mauls. So Nathan Robson, Blake Everson, for me, they're the players that definitely catch the eye, and that's no disrespect intended to the rest of the squad either. Everybody's done a good job. They have to be doing a good job to get up to where they are at the level they are in the rugby pyramid. But Blake Everson, Nathan Robson, 2 top men.
Very well. Let's move on to Vagabonds. And the Vagabonds men's side, after the ladies' team finished their campaign last week, it's their penultimate trip of the season, really. And Dave, coming up against Duckenfield tomorrow afternoon away from home at 1 o'clock. Is this their most realistic chance of getting points on the board between now and the end of the season?
Pretty much. I mean, I don't want to denigrate Vagabonds too much. They've not had a good season. Things haven't gone smoothly for them. The league's been a bit disjointed as well. There was Blackpool pulled out, as did Old Bedians just before Christmas. And that left a very difficult programme of fixtures for Vagabonds from January onwards. The fixture list has them playing every week from now until the 6th of May, I think. might be the 3rd of May, I can't remember now, but a game every weekend consistently. And that's because of that disjointed nature of the league. I think it was a 14-team league to start off with, and it was going to play everybody else once, and then it was going to split into 2 mini leagues, and that would give them a decent number of fixtures. But unfortunately, with those 2 clubs pulling out, they had to readjust on the hoof is probably the best way to describe it. And Vagabonds hadn't quite got in all their fixtures before Christmas, chuck in those named storms when travel wasn't possible, and it's given them a fixture list that their squad size hasn't been able to cope with. That and a couple of injuries. We know that skipper Dan Bonwick's been out for a little while with a knee injury. Mitch Wells with back, neck and leg. There was a fractured cheekbone in there for somebody. I can't remember which player that was, but when those things all start to mount up, it's very difficult for any sort of consistency in your team selection. And, we've seen it last week. John Ferguson, who's an incredibly talented player, he's been playing second row or front row mainly. He's not, you want a big tall guy at second row, and Fergie's not that big tall guy, but he's a worker. He puts in the effort around the pitch. He's covering back if he spots there's holes in the back line. Really is a workhorse for the team. And when they missing Mitch Wells at prop, Fergie steps up. He's the man who's going to go in there to cover in the front row. Well, last week he found himself playing at number 8. And your number 8, you want to be your most destructive player with the ball in hand and your most destructive player with the ball out of hand. And for all John Ferguson's many talents, he's not that kind of player. He's not got the massive engine that's going to keep him running and punching into the opposition line. And it's very difficult when you're forced to make decisions like that, because most of your squad's on the sick list. So it's been impossible for Vagabonds. Duckenfield, yes, you're right, Rob. It is a very realistic chance for them. Duckenfield have only got 2 more wins than Vagabonds. Vagas won at Ballafletcher as well. But the Block Sages playing fields in East Manchester is a very difficult place to go and win. And I'm sure if we look at the stats, and I haven't dug down that deeply, but I'm pretty certain Duckenfield's wins will all have been at home. Vagabonds on paper have a much worse record than Duckenfield. They've conceded something like 300 more points. They haven't scored as many as Duckenfield, although they're not far away from it. And number of wins for Vagabonds 3, it's only 5 for Duckenfield, so it is a great chance for Vagabonds, but I'm not certain. We haven't got a team sheet, or I haven't got a team sheet at least for them yet. I generally find that out on the Saturday morning. It suggests to me that they might be struggling again this week. They then have Colne and Nelson, who are going to visit Ballafletcher, and their final game is going to be against promotion-chasing second-place LaSalle. And I'm pretty certain De La Salle won't be taking their foot off the gas. So, this is perhaps Vagabond's only real chance of picking up some points before the end of the season.
No team news filtering through to us from Vagabonds either at the moment, Dave, but we have 90 seconds here, quite literally. We have to quickly touch on the fact that we do have a combined Manx Cup and Manx Shield doubleheader at Ballakilley Park this weekend. Southern Nomads against Ramsey.
Yeah, interesting clash. I don't have a Nomads team yet. Ramsey aren't quite at full strength. That's the first news, I guess. Jake Richmond would probably be a shoe into the side. He's gone to Nepal, of all places. And Sam Corlett is off island as well this weekend, so Josh Leese will be covering at scrum half. And Connor Goodall and Brandon Atchison are going to pick up a centre partnership. No real big shocks from the Ramsey team. It is unfortunate that in a season where both sides have been deprived of fixtures, we've had to combine 2 to fit it in. But it's been a problem with the Manx Cup this season that we can't really get it going until Douglas and Vagabonds have finished their league programmes. And we know Vagabonds are going on till at least the 5th of April. But we'll be covering the game for Saturday Live. There'll be a lot more information tomorrow when we've got the full team news for both sides. And the kick-off there at Ballakilley Park in Port Erin is at 2:15, not 2 o'clock like at Portachee. It's 2:15 kick-off at Southern Nomads.
Dave Christian, thank you very much indeed. So that's a look ahead to your rugby action coming up this weekend. We're going to be turning our attention in the next few moments to hockey, and at the crunch time of the Alabama men's and ladies season for 2025, as many as 3 league titles could be decided this weekend, but who and how potentially? Well, we're going to find out in the next few moments. Don't go away.
Manx Radio Sport.
And finally this evening, this weekend could see multiple league titles decided in Isle of Man hockey. Tomorrow marks game week 8 of 10 across the 2025 men's and ladies divisions. As many as 3 championship crowns could be won should certain results occur. And it's not just at the top where there's high stakes. Several teams could suffer the pain of relegation this weekend if they don't pick up vital points. Well, to look through what could happen then throughout tomorrow, I've been catching up with our hockey correspondent, Ben Cunningham, to get his thoughts. So here we are coming into what is very much the business end of the Isle of Man men's and ladies hockey season for 2025. We're focusing on the league once more. Game week 8 of 10 beckons this Saturday, and crucially this weekend, should certain stars align, certain titles and relegations could be decided across the divisions this weekend. Ben, we're going to start with the Ladies Premier League, and at the moment, Castletown A running the show at the top. They're 6 points clear, and if they are successful again this weekend and they make it 8 wins from 8, they could wrap up the Ladies Premier League title this weekend, couldn't they?
Absolutely. Of course, they're playing Backers A this weekend, so big ask for Backers A to overcome Castletown, who have been absolutely phenomenal all season this year, absolutely unbeatable, and only 4 goals conceded this season. Just shows how strong they've been.
Indeed, and at the bottom of the Ladies Premier League, Ramsey A, 7 defeats from 7, still yet to get points on the board. It's been a tough old campaign for them. If Backers A would take a victory just above them this weekend, then that would mean Ramsey A would be heading down to Ladies Division 1.
Absolutely, and Ramsey A play Vikings A this weekend, so a tough ask for the Northerners. But of course, like we say, if results go their way, Backers overcome Castletown Ladies A, they still could be in with a shout.
Let's take a look at the games in the Ladies Premier League then. We'll start off over at the NSC, a 5-2 pushback, and that is Harlequins A versus Valkyries A.
Yeah, and this one could be a really interesting game, because when these two met earlier in the season, Harlequins took it in the last minute with the last touch of the game, and it was end-to-end stuff. I think, looking at the way Harlequins have been playing the last few weeks, I think Harlequins, though, could do it. Valkyries have had a mixed bag of results recently, and a few performances have slipped, but I think Harlequins could do it, you know.
And then slightly earlier at 12:35 at Castle Rushen High School is one that plenty of eyes will be on. As we mentioned, Castletown A could wrap up the Ladies Premier League title this weekend with a victory. They are against Backers A and on home soil as well this weekend.
Absolutely, on home soil, no better place to wrap up the league this weekend if Castletown A can get that win, like we said. As for Backers A, of course, they'll be hoping they can get back to winning ways, but it's going to be a tough ask against the Castletown side, who, like we said, have only conceded 4 goals this season.
Indeed, and the other game in the Ladies Premier League is up north, and that's at Ramsey Grammar School. 5-2 pushback. Ramsey A on the brink of relegation as it stands, up against Vikings A.
Yeah, and Vikings A last weekend got back to winning ways, getting a narrow win over Backers A, a narrow 3-2 win there. Ramsey A, though, of course, they were on the receiving end of a defeat to Harlequins last weekend. Ramsey just haven't been able to find their feet this season, and I think Vikings will be too strong for them on the day, so Vikings win there.
Very well. Let's move on to the Men's Premier League. Now, just 2 points separate the top 2 going to this weekend. Backers A and Vikings A. Nothing can be decided in the Men's Premier League title race this weekend. However, at the bottom of the table, Valkyries Men's B, 7 defeats from 7, no points on the board at the moment. Could be relegated this weekend, couldn't they, Ben?
They could, because they face second from bottom, who are 4 points clear of them, Harlequins A. So a big game to come in the Men's Premier League, and like we say, it could decide their relegation. And
that particular game is one of the early pushbacks, 11:05 at the NSC on Saturday, Harlequins A versus Valkyries B. Ben, do you see a chance here for Valkyries B, or do you think Harlequins A will be a bit too strong?
Valkyries B will definitely go out to try and get the win for sure, but Harlequins A have already beaten them earlier in the season, and they'll know that they'll need to just go and do what they did last time when they played them. Of course, like we say, Valkyries B don't need this win more than Harlequins.
Indeed, and looking elsewhere in the Men's Premier League, 12:35 at QE2, that's Valkyries A versus Vikings A. Vikings A still in the title hunt.
Absolutely, only 2 points behind league leaders Backers A. This could be an interesting one. However, though, Valkyries had a little slip last weekend, losing to Castletown A. Vikings A will know that they need to get full points from this game to keep the push at the top of the league.
Indeed, and the other game in the Men's Premier League is the leaders, Backers A. Perfect record, 7 wins from 7, 52 goals scored, 14 points on the board, 2 points clear of Vikings A. They're up against Castletown A, who, as we know, Ben, over the last couple of seasons, are capable of upsetting some of the big hitters.
Absolutely, and you only need to look at last weekend when Castletown got that win over Valkyries A. Could they get it over Backers A and cause an upset and make things really spicy coming towards the end of the season? We'll wait and see.
OK, let's very quickly turn our attention to the other divisions. Ladies Division 1, nothing decided at this moment in time, Ben, but with the fixtures we've got coming up, Castletown Ladies B, who are top, could wrap up the title this weekend if they were to win, and Valkyries B just below them lose.
Yeah, absolutely. So Castletown B are playing Castletown C, so that's a nice southern derby there. However, though, Valkyries B, they're up against Vikings Ladies B, and of course Vikings Ladies B have been hit with injuries this season, and they'll be hoping that they can give Valkyries a good test, but I think Valkyries will be too strong, so I think this league deciding could go on another week.
Indeed. Let's take a look at Men's Division 1 then. So they're tied up at the top of the table. Backers B and Vikings B both on 13 points. Backers B ahead on goal difference, so nothing can be decided there this weekend. But at the bottom of Men's Division 1, Backers C, who have 7 defeats from 7, no points on the board, could go down this weekend if they were to lose, and also Castletown B were to win.
Absolutely. So Castletown B face Vikings Men's B in this league, and then Harlequins Men's B face Backers C, and of course Castletown B and Harlequins Men's B are level on points, 4 points of piece each. Backers C, no points on the board but 4 points behind, so it's still mathematically possible going into this weekend. However, a win for both Harlequins and Castletown will see Backers C down.
Taking a look then at Ladies Division 2. Now, Backers C leading the way on 12 points with 6 wins from their 7 games so far. Now, Ben, they could wrap up the title this weekend if they were to win their game and also their 2 nearest challengers. Valkyries C and Vikings C, both on 9 points apiece, lose their games.
Absolutely, and of course Backers C have been looking really good this season. They go up against Castletown Ladies E, who are bottom, so you would expect Backers Ladies C to come out on top on that game, but never rule out a Castletown side. They could cause a shock here this weekend. Valkyries Ladies C meet Harlequins Ladies B, and then Vikings C face Ramsey B.
And last but certainly not least, in the senior leagues this weekend, Men's Division 2, just the 4 teams in here this season. No relegation, of course, but this could be going right to the wire, Ben, by the looks of things. After 7 games, Valkyries C leading the way after 7 games on 12 points, but right behind them, Vikings C on 11.
Absolutely, and this is going to be a crucial game for both sides because this could potentially decide who wins this Men's Division 2 title. There's only been 4 teams in this division, but it has been a really good little division between these 4 sides. So Valkyries C play Vikings C, and Backers Colts take on Castletown Men's C.
Goal difference plus 22 for Valkyries C, goal difference plus 20 for Vikings C there. So finally, Ben, for some of those teams here that we've just mentioned that could wrap up the respective titles across whichever division this weekend, if, for example, hypothetically those teams are involved in cup competitions in the coming weeks as well, how much can that help psychologically to get the job done with a couple of weeks of the season to go?
One thing they will look at is if they have got into that cup finals, they will want to make sure that they can wrap up league action so they can focus on getting ready for the cup finals in a couple of weeks' time. But like we say, there's so much at stake this weekend.
Manx Radio's hockey correspondent Ben Cunningham previewing what could be a critical weekend in the 2025 Isle of Man men's and ladies hockey season. That's just about all we have time for on Friday Sport Preview this evening. Thank you so much for joining us. If you want to catch up on any of the Isle of Man's sporting news, head on over to www.manxradio.com, select the news section and the Manx Radio Sports Hub. Everything we've discussed this evening and more besides. And looking ahead to Saturday as well, plenty of sports coverage throughout the day. Ben Cunningham on Saturday Live between 12pm and 4pm, followed by Ben Cunningham switching to our AM 1368 channel full time from 4 till 5, and then Saturday Sport Classified from 5 until 6. Before then, though, have yourself a wonderful Friday evening and a wonderful weekend as well. Chris Kinley is going to be here with you next, but from me and the team, until next time, it is bye for now.
Manx Radio Sport.